Well, welcome along to Betting Weekly Live. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Rory Jiwani. Over the course of the next half an hour or so, we'll be talking tennis. We'll also cover the darts for you, semi-finals, of course, at Ali Pally, and we'll dip into some of the Thursday night soccer. We've got games in England, Scotland, and we've got the first semi-final of the Italian Super Cup, which is out in Saudi. And we'll also cover off the NBA tonight as well. We've got all the latest betting splits where the money's gone from our traders Bet Rivers. Rory, very good day to you and Happy New Year. How are you?
And to you, Dan. I'm not too bad. I'm struggling a little bit with a cold, so excuse the odd snuffle here and there. I think everyone's got it in England and Spain at the moment. So
yeah, it is absolutely everywhere, unfortunately. And for you, in terms of this time of year, you've had a little bit of time off, but now the WTA is underway and the tennis starts to kick into gear, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like I had that long off, to be honest. It kind of ended early November and they were back at it. Well, yeah, beginning of this week. So not even 2025. It started in tail end of 2024. It's been quite a short break. It's been okay. I mean, I was betting a bit on the ITF with mixed results, has to be admitted. It's a bit difficult the time of year, end of the season, where players have been on the go for a long time, but now a fresh season, they've had a bit of time out and interesting tournaments. You've got Brisbane and Auckland normal WTA tournaments, and you've also got United Cup, the sort of team event in Australia. So and we haven't got much time before the first slam of the season. Australian Open's in a couple of weeks, so hopefully. Australian Open's difficult because you're trying to get a handle on these players early. You've only got limited time to see what they're doing. So it's quite there's not much time, but it's an important time, and you try and get a handle on the season.
We're going to get Rory's thoughts on some of the matches in Auckland and in Brisbane. We'll take a look at the futures for the Women's Australian Open starts late this month, as Rory points out. Plenty of you dropping in on the comments already. Alex has been on nice and early saying, what's the darts prediction for the semis? We are going to get to the darts. Rory has been across the darts over the course of the last few weeks. Ming Chung says, good day, guys. Duncan, afternoon. Vidivan says, good day to you both. Rick Hailey, morning, everybody. Margaret Court says, happy New Year, Rory. Good call on Kazakhina. She couldn't even handle the fast service, as you said, on the WTA show. And Minga says, Rory, what's your favourite Grand Slam? What's the one that you've maybe made most money on? What's the one that you've got the right call on more often than not, Rory? What's your favourite?
Roland Garros, French Open, every time, without a shadow of a doubt. It's because it's clay. I think it's the easiest one to pick because there are certain players who do better on clay. And it just seems to consistently, you get a more of a feel for it. And yeah, I just always seems to do best on it. And it's also, and partly because there's only a short run in the clay court season. You've only got 4 or 5 tournaments beforehand. And usually the players that perform well in those tournaments go well in Roland Garros. So it seems to be the easiest one. With Wimbledon, it's too short for leading on grass. Sometimes the top players don't even play on grass before Wimbledon. Australian Open, beginning of the season, that's really difficult.
Yeah.
US Open, everyone can play on hard courts. So it's kind of the most open, but it's also near the end of the season. So some players are feeling it by that. Whereas I think with the French, it's just the right time of the year. It's on clay. It just seems to kind of work for me.
Hopefully we'll get some big price winners for you over the course of the show. Maybe 1 or 2 hot dogs. Not this hot dog. she may well calm down. But her mum's just gone out, so we'll see what happens. Nigel says Kazakhina was 4-0 up and blew it in the final set. And Rory pointed out the fact that she may well do that. Notable Wednesday winners and losers for you. $26,000 pretty much on Arizona State plus 19 was a winner. Northern Iowa live on the money line at minus 303. Short price 25K was also a winner. The Texas-Arizona State game over 44.5 points live, minus 250, $25,000 play. Some heavy hitters coming in on some of the short prices, the Bet Rivers clients over the course of the last 24 hours. So well done if you've managed to find one or two winners. If you are one of those heavy hitters, hopefully you're joining us. Let us know what you are betting in the comments. Lots of streaming on the Bet Rivers site and the app. All of the Scottish Premiership matches are being streamed. Many of them are underway. We've got one more to kick off. That's the Dundee Derby, which we'll take a look at for you a little later. We've got all of the tennis for you as well, the ATP action at Brisbane and the WTA in Auckland, women's event Brisbane as well. And the PDC World Darts Championship is also streamed on the Bet Rivers app and also the Bet Rivers site. And Rory will be talking his way through the semi-finals for us a little later. We are going to start with tennis. We're going to start in Auckland. Rory, we've got a number of matches that you want to talk about. First of all, Naomi Osaka against Hailey Baptiste, which has only just been priced up, this one. Osaka is the short price favourite, minus 375, with Baptiste at plus 280 here. Rory, we're down to the quarterfinals, are we, in Auckland? What do you think about Osaka Baptiste first up?
Yeah, I mean, Osaka's not been overly impressive. A shout out to Nigel, because obviously we did the WTA Betting Weekly preview show, and he did pick. He's had a bit of bad luck, because he picked Kazatkina in Brisbane, as well as Deanna Schneider, who I also picked, and she fell at the first hurdle. And in Auckland, because he looked at the draw, and we both looked at the draw, and there were very weak quarters, the second and fourth quarter, he went for Emma Raducanu, who finished last season really well. She's just teamed up with a great fitness trainer, apparently. Used to be Maria Sharapova's fitness trainer. What happens? She pulls out on the eve of the tournament with a back injury. And it's kind of, with Raducanu, we've been here so many times before. She hasn't won a tournament since she won that US Open in 2021. You kind of just wonder, is she ever going to get back to that level? It's a puzzle. And this looked a great opportunity, but obviously she couldn't play. Should be money back for Nigel on that one. But that was really disappointing that she didn't turn up. I went for the bottom half. I went for the bottom half, one in the third quarter, one in the fourth quarter. And Osaka was one of them, because I just thought the fourth quarter, if she's playing anything like her best, she gets through it. No problem. And if she's anything like her best, she'll beat Hailey Baptiste, who is having a good season. I say good season. It's only just started. She had a good end of last season. She got into the top 100. She'll probably be in the top 80 after this week. And she's been playing pretty well. She thrashed Renata Jamrikova in the first round, who I thought might give her I thought might win that. She won 6-love, 6-2, so I got that one completely wrong. And then she beat Britain's Jodie Burridge on a third set tiebreak. Not so impressive there. Osaka's been winning two close. She's won in straight sets, but they've both been close sets against players who she should really be beating comfortably. She's only been broken once all week, so her serve is working very well. Baptiste is serving well too. So the angle here, I've got a couple of angles here. Over 0.5 tie breaks at plus 260 is a play, just because they're not dropping serve very often. And the other play is overs games. I always like a plus money bet. So over 21.5 games at plus 108 would be my bet. You see, the line is 20.5. I'm just going to go to 21.5 at plus 108. You may not need a tie break there. 7-5, 6-4 would be enough to cash there. Obviously, if it goes 3 sets, we're laughing. But I think those two bets for that match is the way to go.
What about Volynets against Parks here? This one is tighter in terms of the money line, as we can see. Minus 121, minus 103. Any thoughts in this one?
Yeah, so Parks was my other pick. She was from the third quarter, which looked quite open. I just thought she was overpriced. She was $40 outright for the tournament. I thought she should have been half that. And she beat the third seed, Amanda Anisimova, in the first round. Came from a set down there. So, that was very encouraging. She beat Greet Menen in straight sets today. Volynets has come through well, and Volynets is the narrow favourite, which I'm a little surprised at, because most of her form is on slower surfaces. She did give Barbara Krejcikova a scare at Wimbledon. Obviously, Krejcikova went on to win the thing. Volynets beat on Jabeur at Indian Wells last year, and those are slow courts at Indian Wells for hard courts. for Parks, she ended last season really well. After the WTA Tour, she was pretty awful on the WTA Tour. She did play well in challenger events. She won one. She reached the final of another. She does really rack up the double faults, but at the moment, her aces are outnumbering the double faults, which is a very good sign for anyone, but especially for her. Volynets does seem to struggle against hard hitters, and Parks is a hard hitter. So I expect Parks to win this, and I expect her to win in straight sets. So for me, the bet here is Parks minus 1.5 sets at plus 225.
And finally, when it comes to the action in Auckland, what's the angle in for Keys here against Tauson? Again, we've got a short price favourite here with Madison Keys at minus 305. Any angles in for this one, Rory?
Not really, to be honest. Keys is the number 1 seed, tournament favourite. Both of these players have been dogged by injuries down the years. Keys seemingly playing well. Tauson will be her biggest test yet. When she's fit, the Dane's a real contender, but she just finds it hard to stay fit for any length of time. She got past Sophia Kenin yesterday, the former Australian Open champion. She served 26 aces, which is nigh on incredible. I think the record's 31 for a women's match. So there might not be too many breaks for serve. I mean, you could look at the sort of the tie break market. We had that over half a tie break in the match earlier between Osaka and Baptiste. You could look at that here. Tauson might be a little bit overpriced, but not enough to tempt me.
Okay, that's the action in Auckland. Winston Churchill says, Happy New Year, Dan and Rory. Duncan Evans saying Raducanu is a waste of time. Harsh.
It's a bit harsh.
From Duncan. I mean, I don't know what the over-under line for how many tournaments she's going to win in a career from here on in, Rory. Will she get over the line again in a tournament? Is she talented enough just to spring up at one stage, injury-free, for a fortnight and win again on the main tour?
I'm sure she could win a 250 at some point. There are some weak tournaments in the year. It's just whether she stays fit. And she showed flashes tail end of last season. She was good in the Billie Jean King Cup. She does every now and again. She just shows, and you just think, yeah, actually, she plays like she could get back into the top 20. But it's just that consistency, staying injury-free. It just hasn't happened yet. Hopefully, this new fitness trainer can work the Oracle. Hasn't worked it yet, but, there's still time. And you'd think, these conditions, quicker conditions at the start of the year would suit her as well. So it's a real shame she can't play in Auckland, but hopefully she'll be back next week. Hopefully she'll be playing in Melbourne, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah,
it's going to be hard. Santa Claus says happy holidays to Rory. Nice to have Santa with us, but you're about a week late with my presents, Santa. There you go. That's Auckland done and dusted. Let's just have a look at the action at Brisbane. We've got a couple of matches that just caught your eye. You've got some betting thoughts on Rory, on Jabeur against Mirra Andreeva. First of all here, Jabeur plus 235, Andreeva minus 305. We've got the spreads and the totals as well. Anything catch your eye? Once again, we're down to the quarterfinals, aren't we, in Brisbane?
Yeah, Jabeur's won 3 matches so far. This is her first tournament since August. I mean, she's looked wonderful in patches. I mean, all the shots are there. The party tricks come out. She just doesn't have great consistency in her game. She was taken to 3 sets earlier today by Alycia Avanesian. Now, the Armenian's a good player, but Jabeur at her best would have disposed of her comfortably. Whereas Andreeva beat Linda Noshkova 6-3, 6-love. Very impressive. The Russian's only 17. When I've seen her, I mean, she's a very good player. Don't get me wrong. I've always just felt she looked a bit underpowered compared to some of the big players. Just a bit lacking in that department. She's come back this year. She's got more pop on her serve, which definitely helps. She's getting some cheap points on serve. I think she served 4 aces today and got a lot of cheap points on her serve. Good variety, great athleticism. I mean, if there was a market for drop shots from behind the baseline, you'd be backing overs in this one because they both like that shot. The last time these two met was very interesting. It was at last year's Australian Open. Andreeva won 6-love, 6-2, which was a big upset. But there's a part of me that wouldn't be surprised if Jabeur pulled out before this match because she's just coming off a 3-setter. She hasn't played since August. This will be a hard match for her. no matter how it goes, because Andreeva will make her cover the court. She'll chase down everything. As far as preparation for Melbourne, the Australian Open goes, this is not ideal by any stretch for Jabeur. If she does play, I think Andreeva wins pretty handily. And the odds makers think similar, seeing the prices. I'm looking at the game spread. Andreeva -4.5 games at +102 looks a great bet to me. I'd even be tempted at the Andreeva -6.5 games at +280, but we'll stick to the -4.5 games, just a shade of odds against.
And finally, when it comes to the tennis action, and all this is going to be streamed on the Bet Rivers site and on the app, and it's good timing as well for stateside players, because we're talking about games that take place, as far as I'm concerned, here early hours of tomorrow morning, so evening in the States. It's a good time here. We've got Sabalenka against Bouzkova. Moneyline, obviously, Sabalenka's short price favourite. Any sort of betting angles here potentially for bettors who want to get involved in this one, Rory?
I think overs games could be the way to go. And just because Sabalenka came through 2 close sets against Yulia Putintseva in her opening match, Sabalenka served very well. She was only broken once. She wasn't that great on return. And Putintseva isn't the strongest server about. She was only broken twice. Whereas Bouzkova did beat Victoria Azarenka. And that was after beating Yelena Ostapenko in the first round. So that's 2 good wins. She was pretty good on serve against Azarenka, who's one of the best returners in the game, even at her veteran stage. She won 71% on first serve. Against that, she did serve 13 double faults, probably knowing full well that Azarenka would demolish her second serve, which was when she did get her second serve in, that was pretty much the case. But she was able to break Azarenka almost at will. Now, the last time these two met, Sabalenka and Bouzkova, was in the Washington semi-finals in August, and Bouzkova won in 3 sets. And I think, she's in good form. She's playing well. Sabalenka perhaps not quite fully tuned up yet. She does love Australia this time of year. She's won the last 2 Australian Opens. I don't think Bouzkova's going to win, but I think it's going to be competitive. And I think what's the line here? Is it 19.5 games? I'm going to go slightly over that. I'm just going to go over 20.5 games at +123. I think that's a fair price. Over 2.5 sets at +230 is big as well. It could be that Sabalenka was just a bit rusty in that first match and she'll come out all guns blazing in this one. But I think the odds here, you can oppose that view quite happily. I think the odds are, they're in your favour if you don't think Sabalenka's going to be quite up to it in this match.
That's action Brisbane, off the back of thoughts from Rory at Auckland. And while we're talking tennis in Australia, just briefly a look at the futures for the Australian Open here. You just mentioned there that Sabalenka has owned this tournament last couple of years. She's the 2-1 shot here, +200 to win again. Coco Gauff at 4-1, Swiatek, same price. Kim Win Zheng, last year's runner-up, I think. Rory, 9-1. Obviously, yourself and Nigel are going to be looking at this in more detail at the end of the month. But, any sort of early sort of thoughts on the Aussie Open when it comes to the women's singles?
I think the really interesting one, I think Nigel and I touched on it when we spoke at the weekend, is Yelena Rybakina, who there's been some breaking news on that front. So she started working with Goran Ivanisevic a few months back. And today, it might have been yesterday, she announced that her former coach, Stefano Vukov, would be joining the team. So it sounds like she's going to have the 2 Croatians coaching her. There are a lot of whispers surrounding Vukov.
Is that good or bad?
Well, I don't know. During last year, and it was quite notable during Rybakina's matches, Vukov, let's just say his body language from the sidelines wasn't the most positive. He was not the most encouraging. Just seemed to be quite scathing at times. And I think when they split, I think a lot of people in tennis were quite relieved that they had parted company. So for him to be back on board is a real surprise. Now, obviously, she won Wimbledon in 2022 working under him. She rose to number 3 in the world. She suffered a lot with injuries and illness, over the last couple of years. When she's on her game, she's got the best serve in the game, probably the best serve we've ever seen in the women's game. When she's on her game, quick conditions, she's possibly the best in the world. Even Sabalenka struggles. She beat Sabalenka in a Brisbane final last year. In the 2023 Australian Open final, it was very close and Sabalenka just about came up on top. She's back in the United Cup at the moment, that teamed competition we mentioned. She's unbeaten in that so far, 3 out of 3. I think $9 might be a touch big for someone who we know on her day is more than capable. She's won a slam. She could definitely win the Australian Open. At the prices, she would be the one to make appeal. The other one I'd mention, just because she just has a habit of popping up from nowhere, is Barbara Krejcikova at $75. She won Wimbledon from absolutely nowhere. We haven't seen her yet this season. She's the sort of player that if she pops up and wins, it'll be like, well, she's done this before. She won the French Open at silly odds a few years back. She won Wimbledon at silly odds last year. She just, when she's on her game, she can beat anyone. She won Dubai a couple of years ago from nowhere. It's just what she does. So, that would be one. Just have a couple of bit of loose change on Krejcikova just in case she does it again.
Just one final thing when it comes to the tennis, or two. Margaret Court says Jabeur in great form. Andreeva may be a mountain too big to climb. Ming says, is it advisable to stake smaller amounts at the start of the tennis season? You mentioned that, Australian Open can be tricky. Do you sort of rein in a little bit before we get some form in the book, Rory?
I think that's probably quite wise. It can be quite turbulent start of the season. Like in any sport, you don't really see, in a soccer season, you want to see a few games before you start piling in. So it's probably the same in tennis. For the opening week, you still stick to your principles. So, Alycia Parks was simply because I thought she was too big. So I had a bet, not a big bet. Naomi Osaka, her part of the draw looked easy. So I had a sort of normal-ish bet. But I think you can't really be too confident at this stage of the season just because we haven't seen anyone for a while.
We're going to talk darts shortly. So whatever you fancy in the darts, get it in the comments. And Rory's going to rattle through the semi-finals for us in just 5 or 6 minutes' time. We're just going to take time out to talk football, though, because there are some soccer matches coming your way this evening. The slate isn't massive. We've got League Two, we've got Premiership in Scotland, we've got Super Coppa. I was going to say in Italy, it's out in Saudi, semi-final 1 coming your way. Speaking to Nigel Seeley earlier today, and he was suggesting that Bromley might struggle ahead of their FA Cup third round tie against Newcastle. That's a week on Sunday. They play Crewe at the weekend, but tonight they are away at Gillingham. Gillingham, there are short price favorites are at plus 125. And I know Nigel's got some really interesting theories when it comes to opposing low league teams who have got glamorous FA Cup times in the diary coming up. But Bromley, since that draw has been made, are unbeaten in 9, 5 wins and 4 draws. They've won their last 3 away. Gillingham have lost their last 2, both away. They have beaten 2 of the top 5 at home recently as well in Port Vale and in Salford. Interesting where the money's gone for this as well, because we've had a near $700 play on Bromley draw no bet at plus 148. So there's the betting public that think that Bromley have still got a bit to offer against Gillingham. Over and under here, 95% of the money, 62% of the tickets on over. Most of the money line has gone on Bromley, 87% of the cash. The under 2.5 goals market is hitting 4 of Gillingham's last 5 League Two matches. And the underdog has won 6 of Gillingham's last 7 League Two matches at Priestfield, which is an interesting stat. For me, it's a no bet. In the other League Two game, a really interesting one between Newport and Wimbledon here. Wimbledon going fairly well, but the two sides played not so long ago, 2-2 draw at Wimbledon. Newport have lost their last 2, but the last game was against Walsall, who are the league leaders. And they also lost to Bromley, who've just suggested are in fairly decent form. Prior to that, they were unbeaten in 5. And Wimbledon have lost their last 2 away. There's 11 points between the two. I get the fact that Wimbledon should be favourites. And I also respect the fact that Bryn Morris, who's had a really good season for Newport, he's just left for Harrogate. But plus 0.5 on the Asian line at minus 103. I'd play Newport in that particular market. And in Scotland, a lot of the games are underway at the moment. You can watch them live on the Bet Rivers site and the Bet Rivers app, but there is a game that kicks off a little later. It is the Dundee Derby. It's 8th versus 4th at Dens Park. Anybody who's been to Dundee will know that these two grounds are very, very close. It's about 150, 200 yards. You can walk between them. And potentially Dundee, who play at Dens Park, are going to leave. This might be one of the last league derbies between the two at Dens Park, which would be a real shame, but they're looking to move to a stadium in Camperdown, an all-seater affair. So if you're ever going to go to Scotland and Dundee, now is the time over the next few years to catch a Dundee derby at Dens Park, because it might not happen again in 5 or 6 years' time. Dundee won their last game after three without a win, but they've got injury issues. They lost their last home game 3-0 against Ross County. The Tannadice Club have only lost one of their last 9, and their form is good here. They're plus 123 to beat Dundee. They've only lost one of their last 9. They beat Aberdeen, and they've also drawn with Celtic. Both of those games at home, admittedly, but I still think Dundee United are probably the better bet. If you want an anytime goal scorer bet on this one, Sam Dalby is the man to play. He's plus 165 to score at any time. Dundee United player. He's on loan from Wrexham. He's got 9 goals in the SPL this season. He's the top goal scorer in the Scottish top flight. He's on penalty taking duty. He scored 5 in his last 4 away games. And he's also a player for the big occasion. When he was at Wrexham, he scored in that amazing 4-3 FA Cup third round win away at Coventry just a couple of years ago, when Wrexham were a National League side and Coventry were in the Championship. So watch out for him at plus 165. In terms of where the money's gone, on the money line, 93% of the money on Dundee, which is interesting. 53% of the tickets on Dundee United. And over has been backed as well in that fixture. And one other soccer match that we should mention, Henry VIII has been on. So Super Cup in Italy, without Inter versus Atalanta. I'm not quite sure what Henry VIII is trying to say with that comment. What I can tell you is that the prices look like this. Inter minus 104, the tie plus 240, Atalanta plus 285. This is a semi-final of the Supercoppa. Tomorrow sees the other semi between Juventus and Milan. And when I first looked at the game, I was chatting to Steve Wiss before we came on, and I thought, I've got to try and get with Atalanta somehow here. This is the Serie A league leaders against the champions and indeed Serie A title favourites, admittedly. But Atalanta have just been in fantastic form. And this is their first ever go at the Supercoppa. They've never qualified for it before. They've never won Serie A or the Coppa Italia to qualify. They only qualified because it's been expanded to 4 teams, and they were runners-up in the Coppa Italia last season. But they won the Europa League last season. They made the final of the Coppa last season. So they are a cup side. But then I started to dig into one or two of the stats. And Inter, who've won the last few Super Coppas, they've won the last 3, so they're aiming for 4 on the spin. They tend to take it very seriously. Both of these two sides have taken proper squads. There are 1 or 2 players missing that have been missing for a while. Acerbi and Pavard are out for Inter, but they've been out for over a month. And Rettigue has been missing for Atalanta recently, and he's not travelled either for Atalanta. But there's been an awful lot of goals between these two from a head-to-head standpoint. Over 2.5 goals has cashed in 5 of the last 6 in all competitions. The one that didn't was in the Coppa Italia. Over 3.5 has cashed in 4 of the last 6. So, when you look at that over 2.5 goal line at minus 104, then I think that is a value play. Inter's matches this season in Serie A have averaged 3.53. Atalanta 3.5. They rank 2nd and 3rd in those metrics. So over 2.5, I couldn't put you off. I was trying to work out why it was this sort of price. I don't know if the pitch is dry. It's been played at 10 p.m. local at night, so the heat's not going to be an issue. There was 3 goals in both of the semi-finals last season at the same stadium. You'd like to think that they're going to put on a bit of a show in Saudi, and these 2 games, these 2 teams will play with a little bit of confidence. And when you look back at the head-to-head stats, you've got to remember that the 2 coaches have been here for quite a while, Inzaghi and Gasperini. And Inter have won the last 6 in all competitions, including 4-0 in Serie A this season and late last season, another 4-0 scoreline. There's a special that our friends at Bet Rivers have put up. This is 3 or more goals and Inter to win at plus 180. I couldn't really argue against that. Most of the money has come for overs. Most of the money has come for Inter. So the standout bet for me is certainly over 2.5 goals. If you want to throw Inter in as well for that same game parlay, I would not put you off. So in terms of the soccer tonight, Newport with a 0.5 goal start, like that one, like Derby to score any time in the Dundee Derby, and in the first semi-final of the Coppa Italia, we're going to play over 2.5 goals. So that's soccer. Let us know what you like in the comments here. I know a lot of you over the last few days have been talking about the darts and want to get some darts advice. I am not the man for darts, but thankfully Rory's on today. There is always a bit of a plan with our guests. Rory's got 1 or 2 thoughts on the darts semis here. Rory, you've been following, obviously, over the course of the last week or so. These are the semi-finals. Chris Dobey against Michael van Gerwen, Stephen Bunting against Luke Littler. A lot of focus on Littler, obviously. Just give us your thoughts generally on the tournament so far. I've not got the outrights up here. I'll try and find them. I'm presuming here that Luke Littler is the favourite.
Yeah, he's odds on.
Yeah, I mean, what's your thinking? Yeah, what's your thinking? Is it going to be an MVG Luke Littler final? Have you had any futures interest? You got any anti-post tickets in the wallet?
I've not. I did have a futures interest before the tournament, but he went out in the first round. Mike de Decker. But yeah, that was a bit disappointing. It's been a great tournament. It's always a great tournament. But last night you had a match for the ages between Michael van Gerwen and Callan Ritz. It was an absolute classic, one of the best matches Ali Pali has ever seen. The scoring, the doubles, just out of this world. Ritz he didn't deserve to lose, but van Gerwen's experience just about saw him through. Van Gerwen was really out of form before the tournament. One of the darts commentators, Rod Studd, he follows us on the tennis, might be tuning into this. He and everyone else thought MVG just wasn't on his game. He just wasn't. He just wasn't playing well, and took a while to get going here. But last night he was fantastic. Last year I backed Chris Dobey to win it before the quarterfinals, and he was looking great against Rockcross. I think it was 4-1 up, and then he lost the plot, lost 5-4. He's got to the semis this time, but he beat Gerwin Price, who couldn't hit a double yesterday. Managed to get through that. I think MVG is going to be a very different proposition. The Dutchman's strong favourite, worthy favourite. Best of 11 sets now, to mention. There's a couple of bets I like here. MVG, Van Gerwen, minus 2.5 sets at even money, plus 100, I think is a good bet. I think he's going to win reasonably comfortably. Both of these men, well, Dobey hits a lot of maximums. He'll probably hit more maximums. I mean, he's priced up to hit more maximums. He probably will do. Partly because MVG is more likely to switch to treble 19. But he's right back to his scoring best. He had 14 maximums yesterday in 8 sets. Dobey does hit a lot of maximums. There's one of the specials. There's one called To Occur Every Set. It's just a small bet, and maybe a bit of a fun bet. 2 or more 180s in each set at plus 350. I think's quite interesting. Dobey normally has a set off where he's not hitting so many maximums, so hopefully Van Gerwen can sort of fill the gap and hit a couple then. But the way they've been playing this week suggests that, and what often happens with that bet is you get 4 180s in one set and then you get none in the next. It's not they're not uniformly spread. So, you can, gnash your teeth over that. But I think at plus 350, it's worth a go.
That's in the first semi, which is on probably around about 2:45 Eastern time. Anything in Bunting Littler? Interesting one for the crowd, because Stephen Bunting sort of got the crowd behind him quite a bit, hasn't he, over the course of the last few days at Ali Pali. We've seen Luke Littler, show a little bit more emotion. Obviously burst onto the scene last year, turns 18 in the next few days, I think, isn't it? And you just think, is there more pressure on him now? I mean, there was no pressure on him last year. Obviously, he fell at the final hurdle. I don't know if we think there's going to be an upset here, if there's any sort of angle. Getting positive with Bunting somehow, either on the handicap or otherwise. What do you think about the second semi?
I think Littler looked very nervy early on in the tournament, and then he had to dig deep against Ryan Joyce, and I think it's turned around from there. he faced Nathan Aspinall yesterday. You know, they've got the same management, they're good mates, and Littler always seems to save his best for playing Aspinall, and so it proved again yesterday. He's averaging over 100. He's the best he's been on his doubles was last night in this tournament. Bunting, I really like Bunting, and I think a lot of people would love to see him win it. It's weird because Bunting was kind of 20 years ago, he was the Luke Littler of the BDO, the old organisation. You know, he won the BDO world title when he was 18. But he's always kind of just been the nearly man. And he reached the semis 4 years ago. He's in the semis again. Bunting, if he starts fast, this could be a classic. If not, Littler will win easily. The angle I like here, Bunting hasn't been hitting many 180s in this tournament, which isn't really like him. He only had 2 yesterday against Peter Wright. In the match before that, he had 6 in 4 sets. Before that, he had 6 in 5 sets. Before that, he had 2 in 4 sets. So he's not really been hitting the maximums. I think unders total 180s is the bet here. And I think we can be quite adventurous because it's set very, very high. Under 24.5 180s at plus 225, I think's a bet, because I don't expect Bunting, because he hasn't been hitting so many already this tournament. I don't expect him to get double figures, and that's going to make it, you know, very tough for them combined to get 25. So that bet under 24.5 180s at plus 225 is my pick.
Have a look at that in the second semi, which will come up shortly after the first semi has been completed. We're going to get Rory's best bet in just a second, be it darts or tennis. I'll leave that up to Rory. But just to wrap up, we like to give our NBA followers just a little taste of where the money's going. The splits from our Bet Rivers traders, always interesting to get a line on these games. There's plenty of NBA action coming your way tonight. I'll rattle through where this money has gone already. Celtics against Timberwolves, money line 92% the money, 82% the tickets on the Celtics. On the spread, it's the Timberwolves that have been bet, and on the over and under, overs has been more popular by quite some way, 84% of the tickets. Pacers against the Heat, money line on the tickets, 55% on the Heat, the money, so the bigger wages have got on the Pacers. When it comes to the spread, again, it's an interesting split. 61% the money on the Pacers, 54% tickets on the Heat. And again, we've got an interesting split when it comes to the over and unders here, because most of the money has come for under, but the public money, if you like, has gone for the over. Clippers against the Thunder. Thunder very well bet on both the money line and the spreads, and everybody wants to play the overs in the Clippers Thunder clash. Nets against the Bucks. All of the money has come for the Bucks on the money line, and on the spreads, it's come for the Nets, 91% the money, 67% of the tickets. And on the over and under line, 60% of the money has come for unders, but most of the bets have gone for the overs. That's usually the public play versus the professional play. Shakespeare's been on with his selection, which I'll get to in just a second. This is the Sugar Bowl that's taking place tonight, and thankfully it is on. Just before we get to his play, you can see it on screen there. 76ers versus the Warriors. On the money line, 56% the money on the 76ers, 64% the tickets on the Warriors. Really interesting splits here for all of the NBA games that come your way tonight. The over and under, 94% the money, and 86% of the tickets have come on the overs. Yeah, you may well have just spotted Shakespeare's thoughts. Always comes in late with his American sports plays. Georgia on the money line, minus 110, over Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl that does take place tonight. Stay safe, everybody out there. We know the issues that they've had. That's the NBA. That's wrapped it up for today. We're going to get Rory's best bet before we depart. Rory, you've given us some thoughts on both of the darts semi-finals and a comprehensive look at the action in Auckland and in Brisbane for the tennis. All of that action streamed, of course, on the Bet Rivers website and the Bet Rivers app. Your best play for us is?
I think it's the last one. That unders total 180s bet for Littler against Bunting in the darts semi-final. Under 24.5 maximums at plus 225. So when I looked at it and I was kind of thinking unders, and I just looked at the line and I just thought this is too high based on what Bunting has done so far in the tournament. And if he's not performing, it could be a quick match. So we could be looking at 7 sets. To get 25, 26 maximums in 7 sets is going to be some ask, especially if it's all up to Littler and Bunting's not hitting them.
Line is too high, according to Rory. Shout out to RJ as well, incidentally, who's gone 2 from 2 with his latest NBA picks. And Stephen RJ crushed that Sunderland game as well in the championship. Soccer, good luck with your bets over the course of tonight. We know it's a fairly curtailed soccer card, but we've got the darts, we've got the tennis as well. And we'll have more for you tomorrow as well. The live show back Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Don't forget that the Premier League show has just been released, and we've got the Extra Time European show with the return of Liga also coming away over the course of the next 24 hours. You'll be able to listen to it on the podcast before it comes out on YouTube. Rory, nice to see you. I'm sure we'll hook up again with a live show over the course of the next month or so. And you're getting busy, obviously, with the tennis over the course of the next few weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Build up to the Aussie Open and just trying to follow. Obviously, it's on at silly o'clock, which doesn't help. Doesn't help with the time difference, but try and keep across it. And as we discussed, not get too involved at this early stage of the season, but try and, as always, just try and find the value and bet accordingly.
Great stuff. Many thanks to Rory. Many thanks to everyone who's tuned in. The boys will be back 11 Eastern tomorrow. We'll see you then.